Thank you for listening to the Gospel Road. We're going to look at John 18. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the brook Kidron, where there was a garden, where he and his disciples entered. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas, having procured a band of soldiers and some officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, went there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that would happen to him, came forward and said to them, "Whom do you seek?" They answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus said to them, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. When Jesus said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. So he asked them again, "Whom do you seek?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these men go." This was to fulfill the word that he had spoken, "Of those whom you gave me, I have lost not one." Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. So Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword into its sheath. Shall I not drink the cup that my Father has given me?" So the band of soldiers and their captain and the officers of Jews arrested Jesus and bound him. First they led him to Annas, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, he who was high priest that year. It was Caiaphas who had advised the Jews that it would be an expedient that one man should die for the people. Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus into the court of the high priest. But Peter stood outside the door, so the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the servant girl, who watched at the door, and Peter brought Peter in. The servant girl at the door said to Peter, Are you also not one of this man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now the servant and officers have made a charcoal fire, because it was cold, and they were standing and warming themselves. Peter also was with them, standing and warming himself. The high priest then questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teachings. Jesus said to them, "I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple, where all Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me what I said to them. They know what I said." When he had said these things, one of the officers stand by struck Jesus with his hand, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered him, "If what I said is wrong, bear witness about the wrong. But if what I said is right, why do you strike me?" Annas then sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself, so they said to him, "You also are not one of the disciples, are you?" And he denied it and said, "I am not." One of the servants of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Did I see you in the garden with him?" Peter again denied, and at once a rooster crowed. Then they led Jesus to the house of Caiaphas, to the governor's headquarters. It was early morning. They themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters so that they would not be defiled, but could eat the Passover. So Pilate went outside to them and said, "What accusations do you bring against this man?" They answered him, "If this man were doing evil, we would not have delivered him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." The Jews said to him, "It is not lawful for us to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill the word that Jesus had spoken, to show by what kind of death he was going to die. So Pilate entered his headquarters again and called Jesus and said to him, "Are you king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you say this of your own accord, or did others say it to you about me?" Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation and chief priests have delivered you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting, that I might not be delivered over to the Jews. But my kingdom is not of this world." Then Pilate said to him, "So are you a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." Pilate said to them, "What is truth?" And after he said this, he went back outside to the Jews and told them, "I find no guilt in him. But you have a custom that I should release one man for you at the Passover. So do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews?" They cried out again, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a robber. John 18. It's interesting when you read to find out how people can act. It's interesting that you can see how those that are for you, your friends, can turn on you in no time at all. You know, the Jews turning on Jesus, his own people, grew up around them. And then they turned. How many times have you been at work, been in a relationship, and there's somebody there, and then all of a sudden, one day, they turned on you? And sometimes you're not sure why. Nothing happened. Nothing was said. Just all of a sudden, one day, attack mode. It's interesting when you're trying to deal with people on a regular basis and trying to live your life, trying to be better for you, and at the same idea, trying to better others around you, and some can be open to that, and some, that will actually turn them away, believe it or not, because they seem to be happy in their own little world, and they do not want that world to change. They do not want someone to come in and just turn it over. Even if they can be there complaining and griping because of where they are and what they're doing and how unhappy they are and how they know that they can do better. Again, I've done the same thing and I've been there. But it's interesting that they can turn your support into a fight. Now, not everyone has the best tact when it comes to trying and support and helping someone either. I mean, I know I don't always do it the best way. But again, it's our position to be here to help and to lift up one another. So have you been in a situation? Again, we're reading through the scriptures, but we're looking at these allegories to what has happened in our lives. Well, no, we've not been put to death. We've not been killed like Christ. But leading up to that, where have you been in a situation that you were doing something? You weren't doing anything wrong, but then yet people turned on you, trying to get you fired from a job, trying to, ending a relationship because there was something that they just didn't like. And maybe it's something that it wasn't that they did not like about you. It was something that they didn't like about themselves. And you were kind of putting a spotlight on that. And it was just really freaking them out. And they are not sure how to change what that is. And since they're not able to change that, they lash out. And by lashing out, they come after you. And by doing that, you're the one that gets attacked, that things kind of get turned upside down. And then you now have to figure out how you're going to move on through life and how you're going to deal with things. And no, it's not easy. But this is how we live. This is how people are. But we still need to love them. I'm not saying you understand. I do not always understand. But we need to love them. And we need to have compassion. We need to pray for them. Believe in them. And yes, it's frustrating. Drives me nuts. But that's what we have to do. I remember the bracelets. I know I've talked about these before. The WWJDs, What Would Jesus Do? And a lot of people would do that, and with the whole what would Jesus do, there were those that complained, they were, making a mockery of Christ, but then there were those that were looking at that, and then they were kind of being very hard-nosed, my way or the highway. And it's not that. It's what would Jesus do? It's Jesus would show love and compassion. Jesus would open his arms. Jesus would believe in them. See, that personal walk with God, it's not just the belief that you have in Christ or in God, the belief in following them, but it's the belief that they have in you. The belief that you can be better. The belief that you can be stronger. The belief that you can be the best that you can be as a friend, as family, brother, sister, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle. The best worker, the best manager, the best supervisor, the best CEO. The best person to bring up leaders around you. Again, it's us bringing up others to help them be those that can lead too. It's us all kind of, in a way, being motivational speakers and saying, you can do this. You can take that step. But we still have to remember, everyone has to make their decision. And no matter what their decision is, we still need to love them and care for them. That's a hard row to hold. That's something to really not understand, is it? Now, wait a minute. I know that you need to be doing this, so you need to do... No. We all have our own free will. We all have our own mind. We can make our decisions, and we choose what our life is going to be. But whatever that decision is does not mean we turn our backs on them. No. It means that we still have love and compassion, and we still give them encouragement. We still believe in them the best that you can. John 18 is what we looked at. So read this. What does it speak to you? Again, I say it every time. This is what I am getting out of reading, and I'm sharing it with you openly because it's a personal relationship. You can read John 18 and you're going to see something completely different, or you might see exactly what I do. But you have to read. I don't care who you are, you should at least read. If you're going to condemn something, read it. If you're going to be against something, you need to understand why you're against it. It's not just because someone told me to. Why are you against it? You need to have a platform. It's a debate. Do you remember debate in school? Did you take debate in school? Were you in debate club? High school? College? You need to understand Just like if you're for something, you need to have a basis. You need to have a platform to know and understand why you are for something. Because if you have no information or knowledge about it, how can you really support it? John chapter 18. Thank you for listening to the Gospel Road. Have a great day. God bless.